felt that everybody else was.
Good morning. Welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for January 26, 2016. Can you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So, closed session first. So I just want to report that we started this morning with two closed sessions. Closed session number one was pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, personal matter conference with Labor Negotiator Judy Hawkins, Deputy County Administrative Officer, Human Resources and Risk Management, regarding the Sheriff's Management Unit, the Calaveras County Public Safety's Employees Association, and the Service Employees International Union, negotiations, Human Resources Director, Board action. There was none. Also, on item number 3, which is on the agenda, was the second closed session item that we did, was a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D4, and there was no action taken. So we have one more closed session that will be that'll be our lunch break. We'll do that during our lunch break. So, and now before we move to our recognitions and acknowledgments, we have something that we want to add to the agenda for today, and it was because of a deadline, and so I'm going to ask the board to weigh in on that.
And what we're asking the board to add to the agenda today is to take action regarding a Fire Management Assistance Grant, FMAG, and Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, HMGP. And to put it on the agenda, it will require a 4/5 vote of the board under Section Rule 19B of the board agenda items. It was during the January 25th, 2016 Butte Fire Recovery meeting that administrative staff was informed for the first time that the county must state in writing its intent to pursue both the FMAG and HMGP grants by no later than January 31st, 2016. Because of the late notice, this item was needs to be agendized as an urgent matter under Government Code 54954.2B2. And as I mentioned, Rule 19B of the board, County Board procedures requiring a 4/5 vote to be considered for approval. So I would ask that the board consider putting this item on the agenda, on the regular agenda being the first item heard, because we do have representatives from Cal OES and FEMA here today to answer any questions should the board have questions.
Are you asking for a motion just to put it on the agenda now?
That's correct.
Discuss it later?
I'll make a motion. Okay, a motion by Supervisor Wright.
I second the motion.
Second by Supervisor Kearney. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's 5-0. Good. Good. All right, so we can then move on to recognitions. So this recognition is Random Act of Kindness Week for February. Do I have any people here that are representing? Oh, great. Good. Thank you.
So February 8th, right? Kindness Zone. Calaveras County has been doing this 21 years. It started 21 years ago at Angels Camp, City Angels Camp. when my wife and I were made aware of Random Acts of Kindness being a cool thing to do. So we reached out to the organization, which was a grassroots thing, and we ended up bringing it home to Calaveras County. So I am grateful that the Board of Supervisors has decided that they could deem Calaveras County to be a kindness zone year after year. I don't know, 8 or 9 years now going. So each year we get about 8,000 or 9,000 ribbons, and we give them to all the school districts. I've got some ribbons for the Board of Supervisors to pass out in their districts, and also at the county here, and some bolts of blue ribbon. And the whole idea is to cause people to stop for a moment and make kindness a topic of conversation in their home, and their family, and their school. And the world is a messy place that needs more love and more kindness. Okay, so that's what I'm here to do, is call attention. This is a public relations campaign. That's what it is. So I congratulate the Board of Supervisors in being able to deem the county a kindness zone. I don't know of any other county on earth, in California, in America. So thank you. I'm challenging and asking you guys to participate. All the school kids will have these blue ribbons, and like I say, there's 8,000 or 9,000 of them. We're passing them out to businesses throughout Calaveras County, especially Angels Camp, since that's kind of my hometown. So Starbucks will have some, and the City of Angels will have some, and the county will have some. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Let's bring some to public relations. Okay. Okay. All right. So anyhow, thank you very much, and we hope that we make a difference. We think one at a time we can. So again, the county has been very supportive of this grassroots effort. Money is donated from my friends and citizens and community members to buy all these ribbons each year, and we have a website, www.theseedsofkindness.com. And I'm just proud as all get out that I live here in Calaveras County, where I think it's an awesome place. And I think we need to do more kindness, so that's what I'm all about. So thank you very much. All right, cool. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so this is whereas Random Acts of Kindness Week will be observed Friday 8th through 15th, 2016, and whereas Calaveras County participated in Random Acts of Kindness Week in 2010, 2011, 2012, 13, 14, and 2015, and now 2016. Whereas, once we get the vote, whereas all who live and work within Calaveras County are encouraged to practice random acts of kindness, a tradition started in Angels Camp by the Jim Bargantz family. And now therefore be resolved that the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors designates the week of February 8th through 13th, 2016 to be Kindness Week throughout the county. And be it further resolved, the Board of Supervisors desires that the County of Calaveras be deemed a Random Acts of Kindness zone during the week of February 8th and continue from that day through the year 2016. Do they have public comment?
Good job.
You're all going to be kind, right? Good.
And not just for the week of February 8th, okay? But you do need to remind everyone to think about kindness.
Many years ago, when the Women's Crisis Line was first starting, Jim Bergantz and his wife donated roses to the Women's Crisis Line so we could make dollar sales at a street fair. And I think that was one of the first acts of kindness by a business that we experienced, and it has stayed with me forever. And I still thank you, Jim, for reaching out when we had absolutely no support in the community, but your business did reach out, and I still remember it, and thank you for that.
All right, so it just took one first random act, and look what it's turned into. So, now it's countywide. Yeah, for so many years too.
And our website, we've got a real cool logo on the ribbon. It's hands dropping hearts in a pond, and then the pond, the hearts make ripples. So the whole thing is it's one act leads to another, and you just don't know. It could be a smile, it could be somebody going in front of you in line, it could be a left turn, it could be anything, and it could make a huge difference going forward. So I challenge you to keep it going and make it more real than ever and bigger than ever. And we don't own kindness. It's not. There's no trademark or patent here. Follow me, I'm in our county. Could follow in your footsteps. You never know. And the rest of California, maybe. Who knows? So, thank you very much.
And good thing is that it doesn't cost a thing.
Jim, can people buy these signs and how much and where do we
You
get
can go to our website, where
Okay.
it's all volunteer, me, my family, and you can send me an email and I can get you a sign. We have some money left over from this year and we can buy some more signs. We get them from Safety, with a Safety Light or whatever in Modesto. And I remember the first year we did this at the City of Angels, it was Rourke Weber who was sitting he's the city engineer at that time or whatever. He was sitting in the audience and he says, why don't we get some signs? And they could be, road signs. And I said, oh my gosh, Rourke, that's a cool idea. He goes, well, I know how to get them. So Rourke Weber and his engineering company bought the first 3 signs, and we put them in Angels Camp, the school, and the entrance to the city. I'll just throw this down right now, Board of Supervisors. I would like to see these signs at every entrance to the county. We bought a bunch of signs, and they're living somewhere, and we can get more. But we need you to decide that's a good idea. We have one at the City of Angels. So I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I still have the faith that if you want more signs, go to the website, I'll get them for you.
I'd actually like to see one right outside that door.
This is for you to put outside the door, okay? Thank you very much.
All right, so panel, what's
So moved.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion by Supervisor Ponte, second by
I second the motion.
by Supervisor Fernie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you
for starting a really good trend there.
Well, thank you for making it real and keeping it alive. So, okay, here's some ribbons, Debbie.
Thank you, Jim.
Debbie's been super helpful. And then here's the rest of the ribbons and both ribbons. And if you need more, you know how to find me. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, so that's a good way to start, huh? Hope the smiles can last the whole day here. That would be really great. So now we'll go with public comments. And any item of interest to the public that is within subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the regular agenda. If the public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued at the conclusion of the consent agenda in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of the comments to be heard. So today, public comments, 3 minutes.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Ann Heisenbuttel. I'm a member of the Cal-Am forestry team that helped put together the grants that you're going to consider. So I apologize for saying this before the agenda item comes up, but I just want to say thank you for putting it on the agenda.
That was a good move there.
Good morning. I'm Brad White. Came to the county in '78. Know a few of you up there. I've changed a lot. What I'm up here for is medical marijuana.
That's on the agenda.
It is on the agenda.
So we have to wait till that agenda item comes up, and then we'll have a public comment period during that agenda.
Oh, at the time?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you have plenty of time to speak. Thank you.
I'm Peter Ace from General Inn, and I just want to compliment you folks. You got a 380-page agenda, and I want to compliment you that hopefully all prepared and knowledgeable on all the little minor details that will be coming up today. I want to thank you for all the work that you had to put in to prepare for this meeting. Thank you.
Good morning, Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. I'm going to try to keep a smile on my face. Limited to 3 minutes. I will not continue my rag about you for the first meeting of the year. Instead, I want to talk to you about home care. I recently completed a newsletter that I presented to my advisory committee, and they suggested I not include a paragraph in the newsletter that was heartfelt from me, and as I reread it, I felt maybe it wasn't directed towards consumers and providers of home care. In fact, I think it was directed towards the Board of Supervisors, the governing board of IHSS. And I'd like to read that paragraph because it won't be in a newsletter. We're talking about the advisory committee. Last year, county officials toyed with eliminating the committee because of overall ineffectiveness and lack of productivity. You folks were going to eliminate the advisory committee, and I think that would be a mistake. The committee had failed to accomplish any of its mandates and had often been unable to achieve a quorum in order to conduct regular business. Misunderstandings within the IHSS program rendered the committee useless and impotent. Little was accomplished over the past 12 years. Taxpayer dollars targeted for the committee were often improperly used to supplant other programs. For years, applicants for membership on the IHSS Advisory Committee were turned away, and their applications were never submitted to the governing board. You folks didn't see the people that wanted to apply for the committee. This hindered the ability of the committee to function properly. And what I handed you out is a resolution that you all, not you all, but your committee, your board approved several years ago. And I would like to draw your attention to page 3, the highlighted area. I would appreciate if you all had a chance to read this, the entire thing, but the bottom line here was that applications that were not recommended were never forwarded to the board as the decision-making body. That kept us from being able to function. That year we had 4 meetings canceled because of a lack of quorum, and we were not able to conduct business. This year we have a new board, and we hope to continue the progress and success that we think you're entitled to. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Garrellis, 4-H Program Representative for University of California Cooperative Extension. Just wanted to give you an update on things that are going on in our program. Currently, we have 250 exactly youth 4-H members, with more coming in. So our numbers are up from last year, which is really a good thing. We have currently 86 4-H volunteer leaders also, which again is a number that's been raised from last year. We're trying to get a shooting sports program going in the county, and it looks like I've got 3 people that are willing to take that role on, so this is very good news for us. We've got 3 4-H events coming up on February 28th, Sub-Regional Presentation Day. I believe all of you might have received invitations to that, the Board of Supervisors. We're going to try to start a Lego build-up project. Actually, 3 of our clubs have started Lego projects within the county, and but we want to open this up to the community and have it where any child in the community can come to this event. We've got the fairgrounds, the old junior exhibits building for that event, so that should be fun. Hoping that it's going to be an interesting day. And then our Home Arts Expo is going to be on April 10th. So just kind of an update on what's going on in 4-H. Any questions?
No, thank you for your involvement. You do a good job.
Thank you.
Very much.
All right.
Thank you,
Have a
Jen.
good
Thanks
day,
for
guys.
sending out the newsletters, too.
Oh, sure.
Appreciate that.
Certainly. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
Any other public comments?
Joe Kelly from the unrepresented area of District 1. Oh, pardon me. I'm not from the unrepresented area of District 1. That's changed. I'm from the abandoned area of District 1. Today I'd like to talk to you about the concept of the vision statement and guiding principles that were passed by the Planning Commission and approved by you folks. Property rights under the guiding principles. The general plan will protect the rights of property owners. County government will respect and protect the property rights of people in their efforts to maintain or develop productive services. Apparently you folks have responsibility and authority since you approved it. So when do we get to find out how you're going to enforce it? That's the thing that's lacking in this document. Supposedly it's supposed to come on down the line with the general plan, but if it's as bad as everything else has been in this county regarding documents, it won't be there either. So I suggest you folks in the future consider it when you do it, bring anything up that might have responsibility, authority, add that third thing, enforcement, because that's what also you have. And then as a document that guides the county's future and exerts great influence on the lives of its citizens, the general plan shall be written in a style that is understandable to the public. If maybe you make your regulations a little more understandable and give us a relativity to any issue that's going on so we can follow it without having to be legal experts and go to the law library or hire an attorney to find out what it's all about, it would be much appreciated. Anyway, thank you.
Any other public comments?
Hello, my name is Susanna Crow. I'm a member of the IHSS committee and have been for the last 8 years. I want to make it clear that what Bonnie Newman said is her own personal opinion. It caused a great upset in the committee yesterday with members saying it had no business being in a newsletter as a private opinion that is not shared by the whole committee. She does not represent our committee. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments?
Well, I'd like to address what was just said. I don't have time to do that today. Today, Marty Crane, Valley Springs. Today, we have a fractured and fairly dysfunctional Board of Supervisors, which in my opinion does not reflect effective leadership. Effective leadership would ensure that all members of the board are included in healthy debates on matters that come before the entire board, with the knowledge that their individual input is truly valued, respected, and honored, and that the outcomes are not predetermined. Effective leadership, in the interest of succession planning and especially through a major disaster recovery, requires that each and every contact made and relationship developed be fully and enthusiastically shared with the rest of the board members, all members. What our current board chair or any other board members have done with respect to the Butte Fire recovery is, of course, much appreciated and can certainly continue without that representative being the current board chair. Effective leadership does not require, nor is it healthy, for contacts and relationships to be enjoyed by only one member of the board. Our chairperson, just like the other 4 supervisors, and the public, of course, has only been involved with this current fire disaster for the past 3 to 4 months, and therefore is certainly not the one and only representative with the ability to lead us to a successful recovery. In reality, it is our highly skilled and dedicated department heads and their staff, and now our coordinated community efforts that have done and continue to do the lion's share of leading us through this disaster and subsequent recovery. Chair Edson pointed out in these chambers that he has essentially been otherwise involved or distracted for the past 3 months with the Butte fire recovery. Has the chair really been able to effectively tend to all the other tasks that are time-consuming and important enough to warrant an increased annual salary? Last year, Chair Edson also pointed out that the board member running for re-election would be too busy or distracted to hold the position of chair. Chair Edson is now running a campaign for re-election, and suddenly that rationale is no longer valid. Effective representative governance can only be achieved when the focus is on the people and not mired in egos and personal agendas. What we witnessed at the first Board of Supervisor meeting of 2016 is the culmination of many caution flags over the past couple of years. This is so disheartening. I remind you again that out there in your individual districts, you have no authority. What you have is influence with and through this board, the entire board. Supervisor Edson, I request once again that you rise up and be the leader you say you want to be. Pass the chair baton to Supervisor Wright, and let's get on with the business of the people. To the residents of Calaveras County, please find a way to go online to the county website or the Calaveras Community Action Project website, and watch the first Board of Supervisor meeting on January 5, 2016, from beginning to end. Then let's talk about process, professionalism, respect, representation, and of course, the Brown Act. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments?
Good morning, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is George Fry. First of all, I'd like to make a correction from the last board meeting I was at. I realized after I sat down that I didn't say correctly what I had intended to say. It was not me that was making the statement regarding the lesser of 2 evils of the 2 individuals that have signed up to run in District 1. I was at a funeral with the American Legion Honor Guard, which I am a part of, and it was a comrade who had been in our American Legion from a month after the initiation of the American Legion Post 102 in Valley Springs. And many people there were saying, what am I going to do? What are we going to do? Who is the lesser of 2 evils? So I shared it with the board, but it wasn't my statement. It was people in the community of Valley Springs. So I wanted to make that correction today. The reason why I'm here today, and what's kind of ironic about it, is I thought about, after the last board meeting, I proudly served on the Calaveras County Office of Education as a board trustee, and at the time, our superintendent, who is currently the superintendent, developed a program along with our board members called Choose Civility. So I brought a laminated thing. It lists all the things about civility. I would like to see the kindness zone put up on that back wall, and I'd like to see this put next to it. I have the people the organizations that supported this funding of this are on the back. Black Oak Casino Resort, the Lions Club at Lake Tulloch, AT&T, Calaveras Title Company, Ebbets Pass Accounting, Tykert Foundation, Pinnacle Physical Therapy, and a hospice. So I would like to make sure that each one of you get this and refer to it often. It's the same thing that Mr. Bergantz was talking about with the kindness thing. We need to think about that on a daily basis. I think that when we wake up in the morning, we need to think about kindness, and we need to think about choosing civility, and it's all listed there. Thank you very much.
All right, any other public comments? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the first item on our agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I make sure that we have folks in the lobby be able to hear our conversation? Is there a way we can...
Can you hear us, Kevin?
Can you hear back out there?
Public access television, Ed Lark put microphones or speakers out there, so in anticipation of an overflow crowd. So hopefully everything's coming through loud and clear.
Thank you very much. See you out.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. All right.
Good morning.
Okay.
Brian Moss, Assistant County Administrative Officer, to address the first item, which is authorizing the Chair of the Board of Supervisors to execute 2 letters to the the California Office of Emergency Services, CalOES, Grant Programs Manager, to identify the source and amount of matching fund requirements for application of 2 different grants. One is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. And the first grant is the Fire Management Assistance Grant, or what is called the FMAG, with a match of $147,184.86. What I'd like to say about that real quickly is that CalAM, who spoke briefly this morning, thank you for being here, have already covered those hours in kind match. So that match is already made. That grant, which is called the FMAG again, is $441,000. The second grant is called the HMGP, or Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, and has a local match of $1 million. Now, this is a $3 million grant. At this juncture, what we would be looking at for matches on this would be donations of in-kind labor, direct labor from grant recipients, direct labor donation from community or religious organizations, etc. The other key thing to remember about the HMGP grant is that this is a grant that we do not have to accept the full $3 million and therefore come up with a full $1 million match. We also have three years to meet the match. So the most important thing about this is, as we move along and we have in-kind donations and we have hours, we can reschedule rather consistently as to how much we're going to actually request of the entire pot of $3 million. So what I'm trying to state is, we are not putting the county in a situation where we are asking the board to come up with $1 million for this grant as the match. So this is one that has to be monitored very closely, and we'll be watching over very closely.
And if I could add a few things. While we've been aware of the grants and the availability of these grants, it didn't come to our attention until yesterday morning, and we know that CalAM and Public Works has been working on this and moving this forward. But what we found out yesterday morning was the deadline that we had to have these letters to CalOES, the grant manager, by January 31st. We are in a priority status for the HMGP grant. That priority status goes away if they do not receive these letters. And as Mr. Moss explained, and I think the board knows how fiscally conservative I am, this match can be made over a 3-year process. The grant is a 3-year process to provide watershed restoration and hazard mitigation. This and the FMAG grant are one of the few grants available to our county. But if we do not submit this letter by the 31st, then we no longer have priority status for the HMGP grant. It will be open to any county in California, and namely, we're talking, would be going up against like San Diego, LA, other counties. And as again, Mr. Moss stated, that we only have to come up with a prorated match of the funds we actually use. So we will be carefully monitoring this program over the course to make sure that we have those in-kind funds or donations or whatever it takes to, or the county hours spent to make sure the match can be absorbed by the county and it won't impact us fiscally.
We also have representatives, as Ms. Ryan already stated, from both Cal OES and FEMA here today as well, if you have any questions of them.
Who's keeping track and validating the in-kind contributions? Who is keeping track and validating the in-kind contributions?
We will be working with Public Works, and our office will ensure, as well as the auditor, and I'm sure you know that the auditor crosses all her T's and dots her I's to make sure that what we're doing is correct and within it. So I think it will be a joint effort between our auditor's office, our grant management, and the administrative office.
Well, I'm thankful that she is crossing her T's and dotting her I's, and I appreciate that. We have 3 years to accumulate these in-kind?
We do. We have 3 years to work on this program, to do the work, and to provide the in-kind and donated hours match. And I believe copies of this agenda item are on the podium for any member of the public that would like to see them.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. So at this time, we are looking at applying for the full grant amount.
We're applying for both grants.
Both grants.
That is correct. So once again, you're applying for the Fire Management Assistance Grant, or the FMAG. The match has already been met through CalAM and their labor. And so that one's covered. That is the $441,000. That's in addition to the $147,184 that they've already met. So that's a pretty significant grant, obviously, and we've already met our obligation there, thanks to CalAM. And then the next one, of course, that we need to be monitoring for the next 3 years is the HMGP grant, and that is the one, again, that fortunately for us, we don't have to take the full amount. We can move along as we find our in-kind contributions. That allows us to move forward and ask for additional monies.
But we apply for the full $3 million at the outset, and then there's no penalty if we do not use the full $3 million.
And that's very like having a line of credit.
It's kind of like having a line of credit that you only want to use to make sure that you can have the money to
pay it back,
or in this case, match the grant.
Correct.
Okay. And primarily for watershed management.
Pardon me?
In the multi-million-dollar one is primarily for watershed management.
Yes, actually, Jeff Grovitz is here today to talk a little bit about that if you are interested in the activities. But yes, that is certainly part of watershed management. It's also to address everything from landslides to debris flows, the post-action on public and private properties due to the Butte fire.
And the FMA grant is mainly in the Mokelumne River watershed canyon, while the HDMP is in the Calaveras River watershed. But it is for hazard mitigation and watershed restoration.
Absolutely.
Which affects our watershed on the, well, for instance, Calaveras River, which goes into the Hogan Lake. So we have, Hogan Lake's looking like a chocolate surprise right now. And the we have an issue with many, with a lot of private landowners that are having issues around their managing their lands, and this could help some of that. So it could then it's much needed for managing our watershed.
And Supervisor Edson brings up a very good point. I was at a meeting at the state the other day, and talking about the fact that everybody in this room is aware is that Calaveras County is a source county for water and watershed management. So again, on the McCollum, of course, most of that water goes to the East Bay, the Federal Dam or New Hogan. That water is for CCWD and Stockton East, as well as some agriculture. And then, of course, fortunately, what was not touched is the Stanislaus River Canyon, but it again, is a significant source for what is called the Central Valley Project, or the CVP, and that also is a federal facility.
Are we looking for board guidance or
no.
A motion to send these letters?
We have to accept.
We need board action to approve the board chair, give the chair authorization to sign the letters of intent, if you would. And part of that motion should also include the fact that this is an emergency item due to the fact that we did not have this information prior to the posting of the agenda and the timeline needed, the timeline that we need to meet in order to be eligible for the grants.
So, the particulars of these grants, we know about the FMAG one, but the other one was unclear. And so when went up to Mountain Ranch the other night at the big meeting they had up there, and there was a gentleman from the Department of Interior.
That is correct.
And so he's a big guy, and so I walked by him and he snagged me. Pretty easy for him, actually. He's bigger than me. So I sat down with him, and he explained it very clearly to me, the value of this, and you know how basically it was tailored for this event, which is really, I think, really good for us. And I appreciate him pulling me off to the side like that, because then I went and got Brian, and I said, hey, Brian, sit down with this guy. And so Brian understood it way better than I did, actually, and I'm glad that he was able to bring it to this point here. So thank you.
That's great. Can we make a motion and approve?
No, we need public comments.
I do have one question, Mr. Moss. Mr. Moss, I noticed one of the participating agencies is the Natural Resources Conservation Service. That's a government organization on the federal level. And that's listed on the...
Yes, it's listed on the letter. That's correct.
Does this grant have any involvement with the recent news release that I was made aware of this morning, addressing the mortality tree problems we have in Northern California?
No.
No,
this is separate. The tree mortality issue is the actual local state of emergency that the board reapproves every couple of weeks, along with the emergency of the ongoing issue with the Butte fire and the recovery. So that actually is a different issue altogether, but you have already taken action on that as well, and as you are aware, Supervisor Oliveira, you're one of the representatives on the tree mortality. So this is a separate issue.
Okay. Just want to make that.
Which I think is actually in our favor.
Okay.
All right, so can we have public comments, please, on this?
In this morning's Stockton Record, there was an article outlining the cost of the Butte and Lake fires, and they're estimating insured losses at $1 billion, uninsured losses also at $1 billion. For Calaveras County, they've estimated $300 million in insured losses, and for Calaveras County, $500 million in uninsured losses. I I think any attempt to recoup any money in any way is desperately needed. They're saying for Calaveras County there were 700 buildings lost. And I'm not sure if this is money, this money that's being talked about is directed towards that kind of recovery, but I would encourage any way to get supplemental monies into our county would absolutely be more than welcome and necessary at this time. So I definitely would encourage you all to go for it.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Ann Heisenbuttel again from the CalAm team. I just wanted to point out two things. One, it's because these grants are for an emergency effort, and that the review of the grants by FEMA and Cal OES was done under very expedited procedures. That's why the deadline for approval is so short. I worked in Washington, D.C. for 20 years, working with a lot of state and federal agencies. And I've never said this before, but the people from FEMA and Cal OES that we worked with over the last 2 months are the best agency people I've ever worked with. They were professional, and they were efficient, and they were helpful, and it's because of them that we were able to bring these grants to you. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the in-kind match for the FMAG grant was not only met by CalAm, but also by work that East Bay Mud has been doing to help us get this all pulled together. So I want to acknowledge that.
Okay.
And thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments?
Good morning, Rosemary Wilson from McCullum Hill. I was just wondering that the monies that have been, the expenditures that have been incurred with the Butte fire, if they are not offset by grants and other such, is the county considering, or are they able to consider legal action against the people who allegedly caused the fire?
That question is technically off topic for this item, and I, as counsel, would not recommend that the board disclose any potential action, whether we do or not. Correct.
And they haven't yet determined the cause.
determination.
There's been no determination of the cause of the fire yet.
So
That's why I said alleged, and I didn't mention the obvious elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other public comments, please?
Joe Kelly, is there a percentage administration fee tied to this, grant monies, for a department or the administrative office?
No, the time spent on the grant by county staff would be used as an in-kind match.
Part of the payback.
In-kind match.
Right.
So that's to be considered then what would normally be a administrative fee that would be percentage administrative fee that would be charged on a grant?
It would be charged against the grant as the in-kind match, so that if hours were spent, a portion of that in-kind match, whatever it was, whether it ended up being the full $1 million or a portion thereof, depending on whether or not we accessed all $3 million of it, it would go to that match.
Very good, thank you.
All right, any other public comments?
I would like to just reiterate about the comments about FEMA and Cal OES. They've been absolutely outstanding in assisting us. And again, as of yesterday's Butte Fire Update Incident Meeting, bringing this to our attention and the timeliness of this. is absolutely invaluable to the county. And so I, again, would like to thank everybody involved, CalAm, East Bay Mud, but certainly FEMA and Cal OES as well.
And Charlie.
And, well, he's Cal OES.
Yeah. Well, he had us in that room for a while. So.
Yes, he did.
All right, so any other public comments before we bring it back to the board? All right. Any more comments from the board?
Make a motion to approve?
Okay, I have a motion by Supervisor Ponte. Have a second, please?
Second.
Have a second by Supervisor Wright. And before we take this poll, I would just like to ask Jeff or whoever's managing this thing to make sure that if they can at all possible, get Calaveras grown as involved as possible, because they have been there from day one, right from the start. So we'd appreciate that. Can I have a motion, or can I have a call for the vote, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Thank you.
Okay, number 5.
At the first board meeting of the calendar year on January 5th, the board chose assignments of supervisors to serve on specific committees. Unfortunately, as we went back and updated everything, we realized that there were 3 committees that needed a second alternate appointed and 1 committee that needed a second board representative. The first one is the Calaveras Amador McCallamy River Authority. The rep that we have is Supervisor Edson with the alternate of Supervisor Kearney. We do need another board rep for that committee.
Anybody want to take it?
This is the alternate position on the Calaveras Amador McCallamy.
No, this is the additional representative position on...
No, that's not highlighted.
It's the alternate.
It's the alternate?
Alternate.
Oh, you have it blacked out. I'm sorry, Karen. I misunderstood your...
We don't need that.
That was the second alternate. Sorry.
Second alternate? Anybody interested?
I'll take second alternate position.
Okay.
We can fill that. So I understand we have 2 alternate positions for 1 board member position on that committee?
Yes.
That would be correct.
Is that abnormal?
There are a few committees that have representatives or 2 representatives, and then they also have 2 alternates.
But this only has 1 representative and 2 alternates.
Yep. That's correct.
Go figure.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'll take that position.
Okay. The next one is the Calaveras Council of Governments, JPA. The board reps are Supervisor Edson and Supervisor Kearney, with the alternate of Supervisor Oliveira. There is a need for a second alternate for CCOG.
I'm not interested.
Okay. Any takers? Well, there's only 5 of us up here, so.
We can't hear you.
Any takers?
Is your mic working? We can't hear you.
Sorry, Susan.
There's a lot of gray noise.
Leave it open.
Going to have to, it looks like, I guess.
Okay, moving on, then there's the McCallamy River Watershed Ad Hoc Committee. The board rep is Supervisor Edson. There's an opening for a second board rep and for an alternate.
I'll volunteer for the second board representative position, if I can, being an alternate on the committee.
There is no alternate. The alternate on this committee is open. This is the McCallamy River Watershed Ad Hoc Committee.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take the second position.
Okay.
Supervisor Edson.
And there's still an opening for an alternate.
I'm not interested.
All right, just leave it open. Okay, so we'll move on to, is there any more?
Not for the board.
Okay, so now it's number 6, admin to appoint applicants to serve on various committees, commissions, advisory boards, and county service areas.
So the administrative office is bringing to the board for appointments of applicants for committees, commissions, advisory boards, and I'll just go through them real quickly. They are in your board packet. The Area 12 Agency on Aging, there is one vacancy for a term ending 12/31/17. The person applying is Susan Tomasich. The second is the Commission on Aging, one vacancy in District 5, ending 12/31/18. The only one applying is the incumbent, Doris Tuff. IHS Advisory Board, 3 vacancies for term ending 12/31/17. There are 3 applicants, Pam Melton, Paul Neer, who is the incumbent, and Diane Van Overloop. Mental Health Board, 4 vacancies for term ending 12/31/18. There are 4 applicants. All are incumbents: Bill Sidovich, Rita Maxwell, Rosemary Wilson, and Donald Chasen. And the Air Pollution Control Hearing Board, there's 1 vacancy for a term ending 12/31/18 with 1 applicant, Bill Claudino.
Okay. Any public comments on this?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right. Motion by Supervisor Wright. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Supervisor Kearney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Short range transit, right? Number 7, short range transit. Public Works.
That was a short one.
It sounds pretty short. There she is. Yes. What do you need, like 5 minutes? Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. All right. Okay, so let's get back to our agenda, please. Before we move on, I'd like to make an announcement that, as I mentioned earlier, we have a closed session item that we're going to have to do at lunchtime. And so we're going to break at 12 o'clock for that. I just want to let you know that. Wherever we are on the agenda, that's what we're going to do. So I just want to inform you of that before we move forward, just so it's clear in everybody's mind, okay? Thank you. Okay, Mr. Krovitz.
Thank you, Board. Today we're here to present a summary of the short-range transit plan, the update to what's been going on. I know you know that 2 weeks ago we presented you a annual report of where we are, or where we've been for the last year. First thing I want to do is introduce Kelly Zanheiser, our Public Works Business Administrator, and Deborah Mullen from Public Works, and Cynthia, raise your hand, are from Paratransit Services, who is the operator of the buses that we've been purchasing and deploying for transit. You now see the management staff of transit for El Dorado, Calaveras County. A short-range transit plan is a 5-year look at operations and ways to improve the operations and the efficiencies and the deployment to meet unmet transit needs for a given system. And this short-range transit plan, unfortunately, has been moving along in fits and starts for the last 2 years. There's been a lot of change in the last 2 years to how transit has been managed and operated. As you know, it came under full-time staff supervision about 1.5 years ago. Prior to that, it was run by various different groups and various different consultants that were neither full-time nor citizens of the county, which I think makes a huge difference in terms of how transit is deployed. I believe there have been some great improvements, and there's some serious challenges that we're facing in the future to transit. But we'll get into those in a little bit more. The bottom line, what we're here today is to present an overview of the recommendations in the short-range transit plan that we as staff believe are very valuable and would be very helpful to the improvement of our transit system for the next 5 years. And we're also asking the board, who has jurisdiction for the policy decisions under which we are going to operate, to make a recommendation to the COG board for support of the recommendations of the Public Works Department related to the short-range transit plan. And that will help us to move forward and operate under the guidelines that make the most sense for us to operate under, and for the measurement criteria that also makes sense for us to meet. We'll get into some of these a little bit more as we go in. So, again, short-range transit plan guides the development of Calaveras Transit over the next 5 years. It establishes goals and objectives for transit service and infrastructure investments, which I believe we want to hear from the board if they support the ones that we believe make the most amount of sense. You'll notice at the bottom of that packet, it says the board decides how transit is managed. So we're looking for management support, management guidance. Next.
Is this mic on?
No, I'll take care of this one. Next slide. Okay, so recommended mission statement. As you recall, we had a joint session last spring with City of Angels Camp and the board where we received input on the mission statement. After that, this is the mission statement that we've put together to provide safe and cost-effective public transportation services throughout Calaveras County to serve the mobility needs of residents and visitors who need public transportation. Sound like a good mission statement?
Yes.
Moving on. Deborah, go ahead.
So the slide shows the service, the current service map for Calaveras Transit. It's comprised of 5 routes that serve most of the communities of Calaveras County and extends beyond its borders a little bit into Amador County, Tuolumne County. It operates Monday through Friday, except county holidays. And the county is the operator, but we contract out the day-to-day operations in terms of bus drivers and dispatchers. Paratransit Services has been that operator. This is the 5th year of that contract. Our service plan, the current service type, is a deviated fixed route, which means that the buses have a fixed schedule, but they will deviate up to 3/4 of a mile off the routes for ADA paratransit eligible people and persons older, 65 and older. Also, starting last week is the Delta Gold Line, twice daily service, intercity service to Stockton. Everybody should try that service. The short-range transit plan proposes an array of different kinds of services and how those will interact with each other and what they will cost and how they should be run is a part of the 291-page short-range transit plan. I'm sure you all looked at. So we'll get into more description of those service types as we go on. The update proposes 3 categories of service alternatives, some that will involve service reductions or replacements. This might include elimination of routes and runs, reduced number of days in operations, provide general and checkpoint public dial-a-ride services, volunteer driver services, a variety of other things. And I just want to remind you, we're not here today to make decisions on what is the best of these options, and there are many. What we really want to talk about is who will be making those decisions, how will they be made, will the board continue as the operator, the county be the operator of Calaveras Transit, or will it be transferred to a new agency, the Calaveras Transit Agency, which essentially is the Council of Governments, the same council and the same staff. So for cost-neutral actions, might be to combine routes. These are changes that are neutral in terms of addition of service hours and service miles. You might add midday routes on new routes, or more consistency on Route 1, which is the route that goes from Valley Springs to Angels Camp. Service expansion, it's going to cost more money, but maybe if the ridership is there for these things, that might be what we want to do. It might increase service to Columbia College, have buses more frequently along the spine route from Valley Springs to Angels, community dial-a-ride within the city limits of the City of Angels Camp, might be Saturday service, or further route extensions.
Excuse me, Deborah, could you also put on there to make sure that Vallecito is on your radar because
Vallecito for the new
Columbia extension, yeah.
And like I said, these are the specifics of route changes is something that really warrants much further study and discussion.
Right.
So the recommended service plan in the SRTP includes 7 levels of changes that are out there. And the main one that we're looking at is a consolidation of the spine route. And what that is taking Route 1, which goes from Valley Springs to Angels Camp, and combining that with the leg of Route 4 that goes from Angels Camp to Columbia College, thereby creating one large spine. And everything else is going to feed off of that spine. So they propose many options in the document. Of those options, a new terminology you'll hear is flex route feeder. And so those would provide service to the Route 1 from Arnold, Rancho Calaveras, and Sutter Creek. And that would be 5 days per week, every 3 hours, from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. One of the options. Additionally, they're talking about a general public dial-a-ride 5 days a week. That's specific to Angels Camp, and that would serve a couple of different purposes. It would enable the spine to the buses that ride along the spine to just do their fixed route, and they would supplement that service with the deviated fixed route that we currently have on our every single route that we currently run. So if you had a person who needed that dial-a-ride service, they would call a day in advance and reserve a spot for the next day. And that's the way, essentially, the dial-a-ride would work. Number 4, they talk about the checkpoint dial-a-ride, which would be for the low-demand areas, and they specifically cite Mountain Ranch, West Point, and Copperopolis for those types of services. Reducing the service down to 2 days a week. Sorry, sir.
So I'm thinking since it's fire, that might change for those areas.
Right, and we understand that. We're just showing you what's been presented in the document. As we know, many things have changed since this document was they began the original draft. So we're just going to look at every single option and figure out what's going to work best and what's fiscally feasible through this process. So the recommendation was to go down to 2 days, but we can look at it. Number 5, intercity service, which Deborah mentioned began last week, or week before last? No, last week. Tourism fixed route, they're recommending that we look at a partnership with the tourism industry and find ways to get people who are coming to visit our fair county and get them around the county in a consistent way. For example, maybe a wine tour on Saturdays going from Angels Camp up to Murphy's. That's one of the options that's been thrown out there. So we're looking at that. And then the last one was provide supplementary volunteer driver mileage reimbursement or taxi vouchers. And they mentioned that, but it wasn't included as part of the financial plan. But it is something to look at as a possible solution to some of our problems. Yes, sir.
On the number 4 there, 2 days a week, would that be any service, or would that be just the dial-a-ride the other 5 days, or what does that mean?
So for the low demand areas, they're talking about just 2 days a week, and it's alternating days. It's like a Wednesday and Friday for one location.
For what reason?
Cost.
But I mean, where did you publish? Where did you pull the 2 days out of?
We didn't pull the 2 days.
These are the recommendations in the short-range transit plan.
But who made that recommendation?
The consultant who put it together.
And how did he get it, or she?
Well, they are a consultant that have a lot of experience with transit systems. They've looked at, theoretically,
Data.
Similar transit systems adjacent and near us, and said that this is one way of providing a service to a given area that has a very low ridership, but it costs less than sending a fixed route bus or van to that area on a daily basis.
Right, but I mean, just to be clear, that you're offering a dial-a-ride just 2 days a week, period.
This is the
recommendation is from.
This recommendation says that.
Consultant out there.
So, for example,
theoretically had some experience somewhere, and we don't know anything of where they came up with that or any of these recommendations. I mean, that seems just weird to me. And so, anything that pops out at me like that, I go, well, how did they come up with that, and why 2 days a week?
Well, we've asked ourselves similar questions. And so at this point, what we're trying to do is present what some of the recommendations are for consideration. We also have recommendations on how we think we should be moving ahead. So again, this is a plan. It has recommendations for ways to, A, both expand and reduce service to meet the available funds and, shall we say, equipment. Now, there are other things outside of this plan that will also affect the operation of transit within the county. So, again, we haven't implemented, there's some things, and we'll show you further into the presentation, Supervisor Wright, of what we have implemented, but this is not necessarily to say that these are being implemented. These are merely the recommendations under the short-range transit plan for implementation. Is that clear?
No.
So, let me see if I can add just a little bit, because I sat on COG board. So this, I did sit on COG board. So this consultant has been working for the last couple of years on a number of things and concentrated here on transit. So this is based on other small rural transit in California, data from what we have done in the past. And so it's only a recommendation. This is not...
Did you ask him? I mean...
Yeah, I mean, we'd like to see... Right, well, what 2 days do you pick, you know?
And
I mean,
why 2 days?
Right.
Why not 1 day?
Right.
Why not 3 days? Why not no days?
Right. This is why it's here. This is why it's here. This is what the recommendation is. This is why it's here for this board to decide.
First for you guys to look at? Or?
Oh, this report, we're seeing a repeat of it to
And
come
you were
to this board.
Was the consultants, are the consultants around?
No.
No.
And what's happened is that it came in, the first version came in 9 months ago, or was it longer? Actually, we had an initial report that was about a year and a half ago. We've made comments, and City of Angels makes comments, Public Works makes comments, representatives of the COG board make comments. Then we get the next version, we make comments, we get the next version. And so we are now at the point where we've had, I think, 3 to 4 versions that we've commented on each time. And in the interest of us being able to operate like a true transit agency that has an adopted short-range transit plan to guide operations for a 5-year period, we must move this forward for adoption.
Right, but I'm not going to vote for that unless I have some...
Correct.
Some more information.
Correct. And we're not asking, that's not something that we put up on the table at this point.
Okay, so the recommended service plan, that title up on that slide, does not mean that you're recommending that action?
No.
We're not. We're just reporting what was in the report.
And they called it in the report recommended.
And our understanding of the,
So it's not your recommended service plan, it is the consultant's
It's a short-range transit plan, recommended plan.
by the
Everything we're
consultants.
doing, yeah.
Got it.
Not by you guys?
No.
You're not suggesting we do this?
No.
Okay.
Well, some of those things, but
And you'll get to that later?
we'll get to that later. Now are you clear?
No, but go ahead.
Thank you, Supervisor Ponte and Wright.
Thanks, Doug.
So I'm
okay. So, yes, these recommendations, to be clear, are, all the service changes are subject to Board of Supervisors approval as long as the structure remains within the county. So the recommendations, and to a great extent, a lot of them, and as we're going into now, the performance standards and goals, they're based on sometimes outdated data that don't reflect where we are today. Like Jeff said, it's been taking a long time, so we tend to be a little bit of a step ahead of them, but it brings us back to you. So a big part of the short-range transit plan is to set forth performance standards and goals. And the four listed on this slide are pretty standard, that we need to meet levels to assure service effectiveness, service efficiency, service quality, and have safe and accessible service. So to meet those goals, there's there's performance metrics within the short-range transit plan. It's our request that the board give us direction, excuse me, to meet further with the Council of Governments and the City of Angels to refine these metrics. In some instances, we're not certain that they are reasonable and feasible, achievable goals and suitable for our agency. For the passengers per vehicle service hour, it puts out a minimum and a target goal for each one. So system-wide, it puts out six passengers per vehicle service hour with a target of reaching 9 passengers. In this last year, we had 7, so we met the minimum standards, and that one might be all right. But the others, you know, the intercity service, we've just started, we don't have any data, and none of the other ones we really have data, and we're not certain that we have supporting information for those. On the intercity service, the target is 7 passengers per vehicle service hour, but the trip itself takes 2 hours. So that means to meet the target, you would have to have 14 passengers, essentially a full bus all the time, every trip, and hello.
So where did those numbers come from?
They came from the consultants'
And they are
experience with peer agencies,
Yeah.
and that may or may not be agencies like ours to a great enough extent.
So the target and the minimum is, I mean, those are coming from the consultant's playbook?
Yes.
Somewhere?
Yes. Yeah. And it's based, theoretically, it's based on peer agencies that operate similarly.
Okay.
Okay?
But they did use our historical data also.
Yes, but when they, yes, that's agreed. But the system has continued to expand. The operations have continued to change and modify. And many other things have changed since this was started. And so when this was started, it was using data because we didn't have current operational data. Where Public Works has actually been operating with in-house staff for the last year and a half, the short-range transit plan started 2 years ago. And so the data where the short-range transit plan started was based upon what the operations was prior to them coming on board. Right. So we do have a lot of change data that has necessarily meant that some of these targets either make no sense or may not be achievable. And for example, since we had no regional fixed route or intercity fixed route established, very difficult for us to be able to know what would be a reasonable minimum target goal or a minimum goal or a target goal.
Right.
So.
Okay, and then if we don't meet these targets, we don't meet the goals, according to the short-range transit plan, the annual reports will suggest mitigating measures such as marketing strategies, eliminating unproductive route segments, changing the fixed route to a demand response service, or reducing the number of days per week that a service operates. So it does give us the notion of being a living document, living guidance that to keep on making changes and adjusting to the situation at hand to continue to bring effective transportation services. Service effectiveness measured by ridership, and the recommended standard is 75, the minimum 75,000, and the target 100,000. This is very optimistic, given that we had only 57,000 in that last fiscal year, which was down from 68,000 the previous year. So we have things we can do to try to increase ridership. We will do those things. But here too, we want to have a realistic, achievable goal. So that might be one that we want to change as we work to work with our partners on that. Service efficiency is to bring the service in a financially sustainable mode, given our federal available funding, state and federal funding. These are measured by operating cost per vehicle service hour, operating cost per passenger, subsidy per passenger, and fare box recovery ratio. The operating cost per vehicle service hour with a minimum standard of $89 and a target of 100. We're so proud we came very close to meeting that. This last fiscal year, we increased our service efficiency and delivered at $101.65 per vehicle service hour. So, we know that 100 is achievable, don't know about 89. That remains to be seen. The operating cost per passenger, the goal system-wide there too. We don't have data for the other kinds of routes, but system-wide with a minimum of $14 per passenger trip. Last year we delivered it at $17.70 per passenger trip. The year before it was $15.85. These high costs are due to low ridership. Okay, service efficiency, subsidy. Subsidies can be high on the system. The plan recommends a minimum of $13 per passenger trip with a target of $10.50 per passenger. Last year, our subsidy per passenger was $15.84. Moving forward, with increased ridership, that can be reduced too. The fare box recovery ratio, the Transportation Development Act requires that we reach 10% fare box recovery. That's the operating costs divided by the revenue. This last year we did meet that goal. So there, the target will be 12%. The consultant believes that the intercity service will help us to bring that up. I hope that that is the case. Service quality, things on-time performance, vehicle headway, miles per road calls, and transit amenities policy. When do we build bus shelters? When do we have a stop? And we have already, those are the same as from the previous short-range transit plan. We've been using that as guidelines. On-time performance, our operator does typically bring 95% performance standards, and our passengers do find it to be a very reliable resource. Safe and accessible service. The recommendations include expanding our span of service day instead of 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Extended further to 8 p.m. in the evening. And the miles between preventable accidents points out that that's not data we provide, but our operator does provide that to us, so we can include that in future performance reports.
So, performance results from last year. These performance results that you see are the result of a ton of sweat and tears from your transit manager. She doesn't know I'm going to say that, but it's true. She's not only learned all of the functions of the transit manager position over the last year and a half, but she has excelled in completing many capital projects that were left languishing and were not getting done. Deborah continues to build strong relationships within the community. We all know that that hard work will be recognized in the upcoming years. She builds marketing and other tools that will pay off in the future. We feel it's very important to continue with the momentum, allow the county to build on that momentum going forward. The year-end performance results tell us about our overall operations, what we did right, what we can do better in the future. If you look at our fare box recovery ratio, we met the 10% minimum, and so we're optimistic that if ridership had remained at the higher level that it was in the prior year, we would have exceeded the 12% without a problem. So we're looking at why did the ridership drop, and moving forward, taking the steps to build the marketing, freeing up Deborah to do all that good work that needs to happen in order to let people know about our service. Cost per vehicle service hour was at $101.65, and as Deborah mentioned, the short-range transit plan estimated that we would be at $127 per vehicle service hour in fiscal year 14-15. Obviously, we blew that goal out of the water, and in the prior year, 13-14, we were at $111.80, which, so from 13-14 to 14-15, that was a 9% reduction, so pretty commendable. Our maintenance costs have gone down 36.5%, and that, I believe, is due to our mechanics and the equipment service center gaining experience and learning the ins and outs of our vehicles. And keep in mind, this is prior to receiving a lot of the new vehicles that last year we didn't get. We received one last fiscal year, so they were learning the old vehicles. So look forward to it continuing. Overall operating costs are down by 7.25%. And then the fixed ridership is down by 16.25%, which causes the operating cost per passenger to rise by 11.5%. So we feel that these statistics show what we've been able to do to reduce our overall operating and administrative costs. And if the growing ridership trends continue, we would have met that 12%, we would have exceeded the fare box goal. Many of the recommendations in the short-range transit plan and service options are based on outdated information, and we feel that looking at the current performance statistics will tell you what we are doing and are a better measurement of success that Calaveras Transit is experiencing.
Okay, so I'm sorry to have hit you with facts and figures and details the way we did. But the big picture is that the short-range transit plan has three overarching recommendations for the structure of transit within El Dorado County. One option was for what is called the Transit First model. The Transit First model reflects the state funding agency's attitude towards transit today, which means that funding scenarios that fund roads and transit gets funded first. And in urban areas and high-density population areas, that's a reasonable model because there isn't room to build more roads. They tend to be very expensive on a per-mileage basis, yet you get much better use and much better efficiency out of encouraging transit. So under that transit first scenario, the suggestion in the short-range transit plan is to formulate a joint powers authority, which would then become the operator manager of the transit services. And the joint powers authority was recommended would be a consortium among potentially COG new employees, potentially public works staff. We feel that this type of massive change in the management function of a transit service in a short-range transit plan is probably not appropriate unless it's been significantly vetted. It seems that this type of a change of an organizational structure would be much better handled by a long-range transit plan with a deployment investigation to know if it really is going to produce efficiencies in service, because that's the bottom line. Regardless of how it's managed, if you're not deploying service that are meeting the needs of the community, why rework? So Public Works does not support that particular scenario. A secondary scenario that was presented, which is what was called budget trends, which means look at your budgets for transit and then your measurements against that is according to budget. So if you missed a budget item, then you've made a failure in terms of performance. If you've met a budget item, then you've been successful. We also don't believe that that's necessarily a guiding principle under which we want to operate. We believe that we should be much more flexible with the ability to modify. A budget, after all, is a budget. It is our best guess at the time. Within a given budget, we'd like the flexibility to do minor tweaks that would enable us to give a more efficient service. Therefore, the scenario that the county supports is what was entitled the county efficiency scenario. See it up there, which is we work within our budgets as anticipatory expenditures. We make improvements that are going to, that we hope will give us improvements in performance standards and service delivery, and then have measurable, specific measurable methods of evaluating that performance. So the scenario requires that recommended strategies be fully implemented by Public Works. Some of those make no sense. There are some services that we will not be able to implement because A, they are either too expensive, or B, because we don't have a ridership that would make it affordable or successful under our current judgment criteria. And if we try a service or add a service that we don't meet measurement criteria on, then we now are forced to do subsequent actions to try to make it work better. The second recommendation, or the recommendations under this scenario, is that we replace the remaining fleet as soon as possible, because when the study started 2 years ago, we were at the end of the useful life of the fleet. Generally, you get about 5 years out of a vehicle in a transit service. Hire a fleet manager with experience with public transportation fleet. And the little green checks at the end of each of these bullet items indicate whether we have completed it. Green check means we've completed it. So yes, we are very nearly getting to the point where we've replaced the entire fleet. We have a few more buses to go. We have a couple in the yard that are ready to be deployed. Again, we received the large bus for the Stockton service, and that is in service right now. We have hired a fleet manager with experience with a public transportation fleet, and he is in place. The maintenance budget should include time for mechanics training. We have done that within our budget as of the budget that was approved last year or earlier in this year, prior to the fire. Everything I think about is before fire or after fire, I'm sorry. Developing maintenance plan goals, objectives, performance standards, and policies and procedures, that's in process. We are doing that. There are some, and we'll show you some of the details in a bit, what we've been doing. Develop more comprehensive maintenance inspection forms. We are working on that we've done. And development of the VMRS coding system, which is a standardized coding system for management information that allows us to return the management reports in a timely manner for our annual reports, as well as for the evaluation that COG performs before they're sent up to the various state funding agencies for them to agree and adopt to our methodology and our performance metrics. So, what are we asking for? Or maybe what I should ask before we get there is, do you have questions on what we've currently talked about?
How does the short-term plan that we saw reflect that last slide there, support and direction?
Depending on the alternative we suggest, and that gets recommended, essentially guides our direction. If the board should think that the JPA, Joint Powers Authority, is a good method, then by the end of this fiscal year, we would begin transitioning for the handoff of operations, potentially maintenance, depending on how that is decided, off to a Joint Powers Authority. That so by January of 16, the operations of transit would be completely in the hands of the Joint Powers Authority, an independent authority. If we continue with what we call the budget, the budgetary alternative, Public Works feels like that would be a step backwards, meaning that we already looked at what we thought were the best ideas in the short-range transit plan and implemented them to improve efficiency, to improve public distribution of knowledge of the system, to try to improve efficiency of routes. Because as you see, it's like trying to solve 100 simultaneous equations with 4 variables here. When we charge more, our fare box recovery goes down. When we run routes up into the mountains in the winter, our costs go up and the degradation to the vehicles accelerates. When we do long runs, say an intercity service that starts somewhere in San Andreas and goes to Stockton and back twice a day, that necessarily is a very expensive service because of the distances involved. And if we don't have enough people sitting on the bus, then the system itself is punished for not meeting minimum standards, and we need to take another look at, is that a viable service in today's environment? The 16 to 17% reduction in ridership that we experienced in the last year under the report, at the same time that we've improved our efficiencies and driven our vehicle service hour cost down, is a problem. If we're judged on a fare box recovery ratio that will be impossible to meet within the entire system, we've set ourselves up for a form of failure. So that's the reason why the 2 directions that Public Works is seeking from the board today is the support of the county efficiency model that essentially supports the county Public Works operating transit for the next 5 years, taking as many of the efficiency suggestions in the short-range transit plan as are feasible, and then working together with COG and City of Angels, because they are partners in this system, to develop measurable criteria that we can then bring to the board for adoption over the next 5 years, so that our measurement criteria balances with our operations. And hopefully our measurement criteria is flexible according to operations. I'll give you an example. 3 or 4 years ago, when we were running Copperopolis routes, we had a higher number of school-aged children riding transit buses. They have aged and gone out on their own off to college or whatever. They're no longer riding the buses. The number of young people riding buses out of Copper has gone down. So maybe we don't need as many buses running out of Copper as we did. The other thing is with the implementation of additional classes at Columbia College or the institution of the extension now in Vallecito, we may want to modify some routes to make transit to secondary education easier, matching that up. So I believe that for any transit system, especially one as small as ours, that has as great a distances as we do, that are as challenged as we are in terms of funding to even produce roads that are travelable by transit buses, it has to necessarily be a very, very flexible system. So that's why we're making the recommendation. These are the 2 recommendations that we're seeking.
So I'm going to go back to the slide where it talks about the 2 days a week in low demand areas. And that's the point that I'm not understanding. I remember we had discussion about doing a Dalla ride at the previous
Presentation.
right.
The joint presentation.
But I don't remember ever voting on and supporting eliminating service down in my area to 2 days a week.
And
It hasn't happened.
it hasn't happened.
So I want to make sure that's out of there. I don't want to be recommending anything that is going to say 2 days a week unless I have a lot better and the public has a lot better understanding of why it's in there and why that's the best recommendation. So, I would like to get that eliminated from any type of approval today.
Okay, well, we have two choices. We could add that to a list of recommendations, that option be taken off the table completely in the short-range transit plan, or you can provide direction that before any changes to services throughout the county are implemented by the operations group, it comes in front of the board.
That is the state. It does need to come before the board for approval. Any change in route like that would come before the board, the supervisors, as long as we keep the current structural and don't transfer.
Well, I would like to eliminate that option from any consideration today, going forward.
It's the short-range transit plan is up for approval by the Council of Governments at their February 4th meeting. So,
because that's just
our representatives on
not
the
going to work.
Council of Governments then can bring your concerns.
No, I'm saying I want to eliminate that from any that's not from happening, because that's not the way to help anybody. That doesn't make any sense to me. And so putting that in there without any background information, no data, no consultant here to support that. I just think all we do is we approve everything here, but just cross that out, and then I'll be perfectly happy with it.
Well, we can certainly make that recommendation. The short-range transit plan is developed by the COG, as one would like to have a layer of separation between operator and evaluator, and we can certainly pass on your strong feelings.
No,
I don't know if we have...
Just go ahead and erase that right there, and then I'll be fine. There's just that...
We understand.
Just that 2 days a week, and if you just eliminate that one day, I'm happy with everything else you said.
Okay. And what I'm responding to you is we have reproduced the recommendations in the document. This is not our recommendation of what we're advocating in any way, shape, or form. To be able to remove that from the document, we can certainly try to do that in the next couple of weeks and as it goes in front of the COG board, and I certainly have no problem defending that position a week from tomorrow when this goes in front of them. But I don't know if we unilaterally have the ability to remove that item.
It seems like unilaterally somehow that got in there.
It's, again, a recommendation. It is not a...
Right, but by us it coming before our board, and we're basically signing off on this.
No, it's a recommendation, and the structure of our transit system...
The recommendation continues down the line, the more likely it's actually going to be implemented. If we don't stop it now, that's what's going to happen. And then after that doesn't work, then there's going to be no bus service to low areas at all. And so the poorest people of the county are going to be left out in inability to access any public transit. And so we need to stop this right now.
I'm not sure if we here today, your staff, you can direct us to do that. I'm just not certain that we have the ability to cause that to be removed. The only thing that we have the ability to do is to guarantee to you that no 2-day-a-week checkpoint dial-a-ride service in low-demand areas will be implemented without full consideration of vote by the Board of Supervisors. You see what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying, I disagree with it.
Okay.
I don't think this should be up there in black and white. I don't think it should have gotten this far. And so I want to stop it now, because otherwise it's going to continue until it's implemented. And then you're going to be like, oh yeah, you voted for that. We reworded it so you didn't notice, and we stuck it somewhere where you didn't see it, and then it was implemented.
That's why we're bringing it forward, so that you can see what the recommendations are and what the COG will be adopting. And what the recommendation in the COG short-range transit plan is to move transit from the county's governance to an independent JPA. What will happen when that happens is your ability to make decisions down to the route level will be moved over to the JPA. So something like a 2-day dial-a-ride will not be within your authority to stop.
Well, I'm not recommending we move it to the JPA either.
What we're asking for today is your support to keep it at the county, to direct your representatives.
All right, I support that, but I don't support that. Why is that up there? Why are we?
Are we voting on this?
So may I?
But how did it get there?
It's a.
May I?
Retold the story of what the consultant reported.
Chair, may I make a suggestion? So, again, 1 to 2 year project and putting all of this together, and you see the recommendations from a consultant, lots of data, lots of public meetings, board meetings, SCOG meetings, etc. So, what I see, this was presented to COG with the recommendation that it go back to the respective boards, i.e. city and board, to hear this. So I would think that this is a study and that we can make our recommendations to our COG representatives that we want the 2-day-a-week and low-demand service taken out. I personally, why the extension to Columbia College? You know, I had asked, why not the extension to the Veterans Medical Clinic? I mean, there are things to consider as we look at the growth here. So maybe instead of what's in parentheses, because that's the idea or suggestion or possibility, we ask for everything that's in a parenthesis to be taken out. And that way it leaves it very broad-based. There can be lots of consideration and discussion about whatever that might be. The extension past Columbia College. Maybe the City of Angels is 2 days a week. It's a weekend thing and not a 5-day-a-week thing. I mean, there's so much more to go into consideration to what's final. And ultimately, keep in mind, any kind of route change for transit comes back to this Board of Supervisors for the okay.
Yeah, well, I know, but you know how it works.
I know.
You know, and so
so possibly we take out the parentheses, and then it's very flexible to allow people to massage it one way or the other based on, you know, routes, financial feasibility, market demand, all sorts of things need to go into determining just how much of that can be done, 1 day a week, every day a week, whatever.
So, Supervisor Wright, I understand your very valid and strong defense because you represent a very rural portion of the county that has a low demand. But
which is also debatable right now.
Right. But I would hate to, on the basis of a recommendation that may not fit a specific route in a specific location of the county, we necessarily remove the ability to consider that we might have, for example, a facility that opens up in Burson that would support recovery of some sort of a population that needs...
I'm not saying anything like that. All I'm saying is that parentheses and the other ones, if we want, be X'd from going forward, and then I'm fine. I mean, it's not much to ask for.
I mean, low demand is not only in Chris's district, but, you know, Copperopolis has a low demand.
Every district does.
Yeah, I mean, today, this is what we're looking at. You know, 6 months from now, it may be a low demand in Rancho Calaveras.
Well, so the way I understand this is a report that some consultant did that actually probably doesn't know our county worth beans.
No, he does.
And, well, obviously, not all of it, because we've had some pretty significant changes in the past 4 or 5 months, and that's a huge player in the game. And so, but this is just a report. We aren't accepting it. We aren't doing anything with it but listening to it.
But that's what we're...
So moving forward, what we want to do is make sure that we retain that the decision-making process that is involved in these transit routes, because if we let it loose, then that's where we're going to get in trouble. So in my mind, anyhow, we need to keep it here where we can keep an eye on it, and Deborah does a fantastic job of doing that, and we can make it more efficient for the needs of the people. It's going to change. It could change in 2 months or 3 months in District 2 because of the recovery that's going on there even. So personally, I feel that we need to, this is just for me, this is just somebody threw up some words on a piece of paper and it went to COG and it's coming to us and we're reviewing it, but the real end result is giving us the ability to make sure that we retain the decision making on what routes can do what, and that's based on a lot of things.
We are looking at, I believe in the next 5 years, we're looking at decreasing funds to fund streets and roads, and we're also looking at decreasing funds to fund transit, although transit will be able to acquire grants more easily than we can for the maintenance and operation of our streets and roads. I looked at the governor's budget, was it last week, Kelly? A week and a half ago. We're looking at another $300,000 hit to the HUTA, the HUTA, which is basically a balancing of gas taxes. And so that represents to my entire budget, that's better than a 10% hit again in addition to the 30% hit we took last year. So our streets and roads are going down. The local transportation funds that made up a portion of our streets and road maintenance is also going down because it is by law being more directed to transit. So unfortunately for us in this county where we have a lot of miles of roads that are for the most part fairly narrow, we have to balance the ability to run buses as well as support the roads on which they run. So that's really going to be the types of decisions that are going to be coming your way that are important for you to make. You still have control over this.
On this here, you have the last slide, you have support the county efficiency model for Calaveras Transit. So, what does, and then that's the only, that is only that one slide right before that?
No.
Is the county efficiency model for Calaveras Transit? What is that?
These are the recommendations that are part of the county efficiency model.
And so what is so getting back to the rest of the slides on the goals and the other recommendations, we're not giving you any direction on that today?
This was just information. This is a document that's for the COG, and our bringing it to you for your consideration, just for your information so you're aware of it. And during this whole process where this was being compiled over the last 2 years, they always said, there are no other institutional options that would be more effective, more efficient than what the county is doing. But in the very last iteration of it, it said they recommended it be brought to a JPA because the county's budget shows that the costs are going through the roof. But that was our budget, that was conservative, and our actuals came in right close on target. And I'm sure the Council of Governments will now support the county efficiency model as well, which is the county efficiency model is us doing what we're trying to do the best we can, and we think that we can do it best. So the report, we don't have, the board does not have the ability to approve this. This is not an action item before the board. It's for information. We wanted you to show your support and to direct your representatives on the Council of Governments to bring that forward when it does come, if that's an issue before the Council of Governments.
And when this comes up in front of COG, I can certainly present your objections to the, how should I say, the parentheticals in the recommendations.
It's going to go to COG, and then it'll come back to us anyhow, right?
I don't think it does. I don't think it does come back to us.
It would come back to us if we had changes.
Changes in
Yeah.
the transit routes.
Right. And we're recommending that we bring back the performance metrics that we develop, so that you have another look at those performance metrics under which we will be judged over the next 5 years as part of this, as part of the system.
But, Jeff, if I'm correct, what you're asking is the board to agree with the staff's recommendation to use the county service method as opposed to going to a JPA, in which that way the board would maintain control over those matrices and routes.
That's correct.
Is that accurate?
That's very accurate.
Because right now, I'm a little confused.
Okay.
Sure.
Sorry. We put too much data in front of you. I apologize for that.
You know, I have to say, looking at the report and hearing the report, you know, I supported looking at a JPA model. I was concerned that sometimes I think transit gets buried in, you know, granted in the last couple of years under Deborah's leadership and Jeff coming on board, that there has been some good forward movements with the transit. But when I look at other models in our neighboring counties, I found that their transit system is by a different entity. It's not with the county, it's not with the city, it's not with COG. It is a JPA type organization. And when I look at transit, it's just not the buses that we see up and down the road. It's possibilities of the dial-a-ride development. We have Common Grounds that receive grants, and they have a service. We have the Volunteer Center, that they have the private drivers for different scenarios. And just recently, you know, the mobility manager position was it was developed to kind of coordinate all these kinds of services. You know, so part of this report with looking at a JPA was being able to study that and decide pros and cons. And perhaps with the JPA, they are physically running the operations and the budgetary kinds of things with transit, but perhaps they subcontract with Public Works, who has taken care of fleet maintenance, and they've demonstrated the improvements in that area. Or perhaps, you know, they contract with the City of Angels with you know, the capital projects, or with the county with capital projects. So there was opportunities to look at who had the strengths in the member organizations to be able to do some of this work. So not that I don't support the efficiency of the Calaveras or this model for Calaveras, you know, county to do, but in fairness, I wanted to pursue that opportunity of the JPA and see if that was a better model overall for our transit. And I base that on what I have seen and learned in Tuolumne County and in Amador County.
All right. Are you guys finished? We have public comments?
I'm Peter Race from Genelin. Nice, really nice. But I also agree with Chris. And one thing that I noticed, not too many numbers were presented on this scale for the public to see. Looking at this thing, first of all, the last year is not audited. Couldn't get you audited, I believe. So the number is whoever wants to make up for whatever the reason. Maybe they're 100% correct, but this last numbers for from 14-15 is not audited. These numbers go back, the numbers I have in my little book over here, from 2008-9 to 2013-14. Now I want you to pay something attention to this. It started out with 90,000 people using it, went down to 55, down to 60, 68, 65, and the last audited time you had 69,000 customers, riders. Now I don't know if it's one customer, kind of twice for back and forth, or how was it achieved? Well, let's say it's all kosher over here. What I don't understand, the fair revenue of $101,000, the operating cost is $1,095,000. You could buy a brand new Camaro for that thing for every one of the folks who are using it almost. You're losing your bottom end on this, and it's not. I realize it's political. Yes, those folks need some help. I agree with that. What I don't see also, what it costs to administer this whole operation. How many people involved in this? Who are all going to do a great administration? You have any, who paid for that consultant who came up with this? Do you folks have anything to do with it? I'm sure it was cut. That's fine. It's still taxpayers' money. And to produce a product like this, but I want to give credit to Public Works because they do realize there's options. I don't know how they're going to like it, but when you're dealing with a couple of $1 million losing proposition,
30 seconds.
there's got to be something. There's something called Uber. There's something called Lyft. And you can give those folks a proper credit, the ones who need it. The ones who need it, you can give them credit because those folks got to come down to court or shop, whatever. But this operation, when it costs you 10 times more, it's inefficient, folks. You're not doing anybody a favor there, the ones who need it. You might have a nice, steady administration takers all over the place. But it's not helping the ones who need it, and it's not fair to your constituents. It's maybe put food on a lot of administrators, but it's sure not doing what it's supposed to be. Thank you.
You know, Peter, I appreciate your comments. I'm Kathy Topol with Common Ground Senior Services and also a member of the SISTAC board. I appreciate your comments, but you know there's a whole lot more that goes into transit than dollars. And that's lives, and that's people that utilize it. So please keep that in mind.
Please, I'll be more than happy to debate that question.
So as Deborah and Kelly and Jeff asked when we first came in this morning to do their presentation, they're asking you for further studies, further recommendations. They brought this to you today to say, this is going to be approved at the COG board next week or 2 weeks. And you weren't even aware of it. So that's what I feel they're asking for. There are many items in this report. I've read this report forwards and backwards. There are many items in this report that need to be eliminated. Chris, not just your 3 days a week or 2 days a week in West Point. For students, they're talking about dial-a-ride for students. Okay, so we give dial-a-ride to students for 2 days a week. What are they supposed to do the other 3?
Well, right.
When we start comparing Calaveras County, I believe the report compared it to Modoc, Tuolumne, Lassen, and Amador. First of all, Modoc County has a population of 9,000 people. That's nowhere near what we are. We also don't compare to Amador or Tuolumne, who are in much better shape for shopping, work, activities. Please take the time to review what these people have done a wonderful job for and make your recommendations from there. Thank you.
I got the distinct feeling, and it is only a feeling, that Jeff was not necessarily in agreement with a lot of the slides that were entitled recommendations. And that could be because Jeff has come in, he's relatively new to the project, and when I heard that the consultant, that this document had gone backwards and forwards to the consultant 4 times, and we've come, and the county has presented a list of recommendations that the county themselves feel are not adequate, not appropriate for the county, I would think it's more a case of the consultant sort of being that the county is being controlled quite a bit by the influence, rather, by the consultant, who seems to be benefiting, dare I say, hand over fist, if they've reviewed the document. And I realize it must be a living document, but to have reviewed it for 4 times, and for the I would like to see the county take a bigger overall control in the direction of the document, as opposed to bringing the document to the Board of Supervisors with slides that say recommendations for transportation, and yet those recommendations for transportation are not the recommendations that are being proposed by that the county actually feel that need to happen. So I don't know if the county is control, or if this consultant is, or maybe no one is. And to try and make this a profitable business, I think is, as the previous speaker said, it's a lot more than, it is dollars and cents, but it's a lot more than that in terms of the quality of life. And there is a desperate need for people, including those in the burn area, to have some public transport, I think. Thank you.
David Hannum, Planning Director for the City of Angels, and your partner in this endeavor. I think we have to take a look at a number of different things. I mean, we started this report 3 or 4 years ago. The county was in a different place at a different time. And so I think now that some of those ships have been righted, I mean, even the city was upset with some of the operations and some of the maintenance stuff that was going on before the study started happening. And we were raising questions of where our money was going, since we are a participant in this process and in this agency. And so, but over the course of time, I think there were some documents that had to be written, and I think there had to be that the stuff had to come out, and it did. And I think the county has done a terrific job in taking those recommendations and making something work out of something that wasn't working. I think they've done a good job. I mean, if you look at the vehicle service hours, I mean, it was up as high as $127 a vehicle service hour back in 2010, 2011, to drop it to $101. I mean, that's huge. And I think you've got a staff that cares about transit, and I think that cares about what happens to it in the future. And I think that the county efficiency model, I think, needs to stay in place. I do think that in terms of directing Public Works to collaborate with COG and City of Angels to refine the performance, I think that's necessary. And I think that that's something that, whenever you're comparing to other agencies, there's always going to be apples and oranges. There's going to be, well, our cities are more compact, well, ours are more far away. There's always going to be those things, and I think we definitely need to refine some of those things to make sure that it works for our county. So the city at this point is in support of the county efficiency model, at least from a staff perspective. We'll be meeting with our COG representatives here shortly and trying to move this thing forward. And I think the collaboration between the county, the COG, and the city over the last probably year and a half with this has really brought forward what you're seeing in terms of improvements of the system. I think the oversight from the 2 other agencies to the 1 agency is a positive thing. I think anytime you ship it away and there's not a whole lot of oversight, then that's when bad things happen. So So we're hoping that, you support the Public Works Director's recommendations, and we look forward to working with COG and the county to make sure that the transit system works for the people of Calaveras County, as well as City of Angels can. So if you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer. I was here in 08 and 09, and it was a mess, and things started happening, and just some different things, and I think now they've righted that ship. So I think under Jeff's leadership and Deborah and Kelly, they've done a good job, and I think us, and I'm going to pat ourselves and COG on the back for being watchdogs and making sure that some of these things are getting done and moving forward. So unless you have any questions of me, thank you very much. Thanks.
Marty Crane. I also sit on the SISTAC committee, and I totally agree with what Kathy shared and what Dave just shared. But I also wanted to say that I appreciate, Debbie, you pushing to have this study, because how can you choose from scenario A and scenario B, or option A and option B, if you don't know what option B is? So now we know, times have changed, things have happened, and I feel strongly that we should keep it with the county. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Hello, Dustin Peterson, resident of Calaveras County. I have a family of 5. I grew up over in Tuolumne County for most of my life, and I spent some time taking the transit. I took it to school, I then took it to college, I then took it to jobs. Over there, I don't remember much about the process, I just remember how easy it was. And my children are now teenagers, and we got burnt out in a Butte fire, we lost some vehicles, now all of a sudden we're looking at using the transit quite a bit. My children have already used it a couple of times to go from San Andreas to Angels Camp. What we immediately noticed is the complication of the schedule. So I heard nothing that talked about making the schedule more easier and more interactive. Both of my children, they both have really good grades in school and everything. Both of them expressed their concern with not being able to immediately just pull up a schedule and find it. They both had to look on the computer, or look on their phones, and then finally make a phone call. They finally called and said, hey, is this really the schedule? Do I have this right? And so I think that's a little bit overcomplicated. It should be really user-friendly. That would encourage ridership. Another thing I didn't see is any encouragement into more ridership. We talk about ridership being, what funds it and how low it is, but there doesn't seem to be anything encouraging more ridership in this county. I don't see signs very often that say, ride your local transit. Anything that encourages people to ride the transit, especially young people. I think that's important. And the Veterans Clinic, I heard mentioned to stop at the Veterans Clinic, and I think that would be extremely important. My dad's a 72-year-old senior citizen and a veteran with skin cancer, and he's having a hard time driving nowadays, and that would be a great service, is to provide that to the Veterans Clinic. And on the new vehicles, I didn't hear anything about the new vehicles being fuel efficient at all. We talked about these long routes and how cost effective that is, and this new fleet coming in. Well, is this new fleet just a bunch of V8 gassers, V10 gassers, or are we looking at more fuel efficient models for the future? That is all. Thank you.
Very good, thanks.
Good morning. My name is Robert Shepard. I've been a resident up here since 1987. And in that time, communications has completely changed up here. I remember when this was a wired-only community. And my question is, has the Board of Supervisors even asked the population since the fire what their needs are? Because we've lost a lot of people. They lived in sometimes not permanent housing. They lived in non-permitted housing. We had houses up here that were close to 150 years old that got lost in the cracks, but they had people in them. What are the needs now? Our population, young population that need jobs, where are they going to go for those jobs? We're going to try to keep them in the county, I hope. I hope the recovery is looking at bringing business back. But when you have a county like ours, which is on the news twice a day, and how badly we are hurt, I mean, it's not going to bring businesses up here. We've got to do that ourselves. Where are those businesses going to go, and how are the people who are going to work in those businesses get there? Is there any way to take a survey among the population of Calaveras County? With the internet being what it is, I can't believe that they can't be reached. Everyone, even I, have an iPhone. I mean, someone has got to think about this. The population is not what it was before the fire. And it's definitely not going to improve until our stories that get out to the general state improve. And I could probably take a survey here on how many people have watched News 3 and how often they've heard in the last week how badly we're doing. And the one house that's getting rebuilt instead of reinvigorating business up here. That's all. I think we can take a survey and actually ask the people who are going to take the bus what they want and need to get to jobs, shopping, and it'd be nice to get some recreation. So, thank you very much.
George Fry. I'm going to talk about veterans again. Is that any surprise? I've been talking about it for years. We're fortunate enough to have the Volunteer Center take veterans to locations. We're fortunate enough to have Common Ground take veterans to their appointments. I would look forward to the day, and they're taking them out of county. I look forward to the day that we can provide veterans services over to Amador County, where they can connect with the bus there that goes to Mather, the old Mather Air Force Base. I do a lot of volunteer driving in the past for the Volunteer Center and currently for the Common Ground Services, and we just can't leave the veterans out. I'm a Vietnam-era veteran, and as time has gone on, more and more Vietnam-era veterans are having problems, medical problems and what have you. In many cases, they're not able to make it here to town. They need somebody to bring them into town to get to see about VA benefits or get to a doctor's appointments and what have you. So I guess part of what I'm saying is that I've seen a vast improvement in what's going on with the transit. I really feel for you, Chris, in your district for many of the kinds of things that aren't being really provided there for those people. You know, I think collectively we all live in this county, and that we all need to huddle up together and help those people that are less fortunate than we are. So, and I understand that this is only a recommendation. I go to the COG from time to time to see what's going on. I'm certainly going to be there on the 4th of February, and I would encourage you to come too. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Supervisors. I'm Al Segala, Calaveras County Taxpayer Association, and I understand your comments, Chris, and I think what you're saying is, would 2 days a week be adequate to handle the needs in the rural areas, and particularly your district? And of course, that's a good question. And also, previous speakers said that, gee whiz, they ought to do a survey and find out what the needs are before allocating anything. And that makes sense too. And if this were a private organization, they'd better do a study or they're going to go bankrupt. If a private organization would not allow any operation without knowing in advance what their customer support would be. That's the difference between government and private. COG with some beautiful people working for it, and they're trying to do a great job. But let's look at the reality of this thing. 90% subsidy? What's wrong with that picture? Where's that money coming from? It's come from the taxpayer. Oh, if the county were to do a 90% subsidy for local transportation, how long would you stay in office as a supervisor? Not very long. Because it'll come home, what's happening? You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. In this case 9 Peters to 1 Paul. I'm not sure those numbers will work out exactly, but you see that the under a fundamental problem with this. There are solutions, and the solutions are occurring naturally. One of them is a private organization, I think it's called Uber, that is not mentioned in our COG because it's not under any government control whatsoever. It doesn't require politicians. They totally are supported by the needs of the community, no more, no less. And their people help other people, and they make money at it. It's a wonderful thing. That's part of American free enterprise. There's an organization called the Cato Institute, C-A-T-O, Cato Institute. They did a policy analysis on fixing transit.
30 seconds.
The case of privatization. If you Google Cato fixing transit, you'll see an excellent report that talks about some ideas that some communities are doing to solve this problem outside of the government framework. COG is not about privatization. COG is about government solutions, and that means taxes. To ask COG to consider private solutions would be like trying to teach a coon to quit sucking eggs. It won't happen. Their whole structure is based on government control and government solutions. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
I just want to say I've heard Uber mentioned twice already, and Uber is extensively more expensive than local transit.
Tony Dotson from Valley Springs. And people have a choice to live where they want to live. And I'm all for that. I think that's great. But their choices shouldn't obligate me to provide them with transportation. That's just not fair. The money for charity programs like this is a charity program basically, comes out of my budget for charities for other things that I see as more valuable than this. And it takes away my choice to give my charity money to where I want to do it. And that's not right. That's not for you to decide where I put my money for charity. The only way that government gets their money is they use the threat of violence against peaceful people to extract money from them, and then they put it toward the programs that they see fit. But as a charity, I should have the right to choose which charities I support, and this would not be one of them at all. I don't see this as a well-run program. It just doesn't make sense the way it's running and how it's not making money. And it's not the government's role to provide people with transportation. People are responsible for their own transportation. I had to figure out my own transportation, and everybody else does too. And just because they've made decisions in their life to do a certain lifestyle doesn't obligate me to provide them with transportation. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments? All right, bring it back to the board, please.
I just have a comment in general. So I would just like to also mention that what we saw here today is a summary of the entire plan that's in our board packets and available to the community, which goes into a lot of more specific data, as it was mentioned in one of the public comments. In addition to that, I would ask the board to look at page 35, where it notes on there that April 28th, we had a joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors in the City of Angels in this room to hear specifically this plan and gave input into the goals, objectives, and measurements which are incorporated into this plan and part of the slide presentation today. And then I'd like you to direct to page 40, which talks about institutional options, which lists a variety of things to take a look at how to improve or possibly improve the transit system overall. And there's about 10 different options there. So it's just not only the county plan, it's not what I talked about in regards to an independent JPA. There's a number of options there. So as we have representation go forward to the COG board, I would ask that you look at those things as you will be making the final approval to accept this particular plan and provide some direction at that point.
Okay. Any other board comments?
Couple comments came up more than once, and I do want to say that there shouldn't be any veterans that do not have a way to get to an appointment. Common Grounds has a grant and they have a vehicle, and if anything, they're trying to expand that service, not make less of it. So I do not believe, I'm very concerned about the veterans and their issues also. I am aware of it. I do pay close attention to it. And I know that there are ways to get them to their appointments. So if anyone feels they have someone who has served and they can't get to an appointment, please sound off about that, because that can be arranged. And also, there were some comments about trying to make it more efficient. I know the transit manager has been doing her best to look at all avenues. In the last year, when vehicles were replaced, they were done so with smaller vehicles. There's a lot of work to be done here. There's no question about it. But at least it's being worked on and it's being looked at. And maybe before it was not, as our Public Works Director from Angels Camp said, what you have before you now is not nearly what was there before. Thanks.
Any comments there, Mike?
Yeah, a couple of quick notes. I got a little concern logistically. I think the board received this packet at 6 o'clock Friday night, and there's 50-plus pages besides all the other agenda items. So I had a little clouded view of what was going to be presented. I welcome that. I still am concerned that this is a short-term transit study provided by a consultant at the direction of COG. Is that correct?
That was heard here on April 28th with the joint meeting between the board and the City of Angels.
Okay. And these are just suggestions of that report. I understand that. Question I have, does Public Works have an alternative to some of the issues raised in this? I know we're looking at supporting the county efficiency model. And I have a problem with a couple of comments made. Maybe you can help me on this. There's apparently a proposal to have COG take over the operation of transit. Was that the intent of that statement?
Yeah, that's one of the recommendations of the last version of this report.
So, and what?
The COG being the JPA.
Okay, JPA.
You know how the board convenes as the Air
Resources Control
Air
Board.
Resources Board would
Okay.
be the same thing. The COG would adjourn and then reconvene as the Calaveras Transit Agency. So it would be the very same members as the COG, and then the COG staff doing the grant management and contract management work that public works staff currently does.
So what role would the county play in that particular scenario?
Well, it's unclear, you know, because the terms of a JPA haven't been established, but as far as I know, no role at all.
Well, we'd have our
We'd be on the COG board.
Yes,
We'll be on the COG board,
Yeah.
part of that board committee.
And the 3 public members.
And if that scenario does come to be, would the board still retain the ability to determine route changes and things of that sort, or they would have no input at all on that?
No, that JPA would have that authority.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Okay.
So we're on the changes for the routes that will come back to us before that's finalized.
Well, that is if we choose the county efficiency model.
Right.
That's what we're talking about. So, what do you think of that there, Chris? I'm thinking that I choose the county efficiency model personally. I think in the past, I was in COG 3 years ago, and there was the transit was in a terrible position, and Deborah come along with staff and took it on, and you could definitely tell that she was into it, which is what it takes. It takes to be into your job and really care about what you're doing in order for you to do the best possible job. And she's, in my opinion, has done a fantastic job. And so I feel that we aren't going to get any, at this point anyhow, we're not going to get anything better and more efficient than what she's doing and what her direction is. So I choose to support the Public Works efficiency model. Have a lot of confidence in her. Do we have to poll the board or vote on it? Is it an action item?
Are you asking for actual action or just direction?
You want direction?
Direction.
All right, so how many of the board choose to support the Public Works efficiency?
I do have one more quick question. Looking at the slide on the board up there, I understand the first issue there. Second issue, does that go hand in hand with that issue? Direct Public Works to collaborate with the COG and City of Angels to refine performance metrics. That's all a package thing we're looking at, right?
Yeah, I mean, that goes without
Want to make
saying.
sure.
They're partners.
I understand.
Yeah. Okay, so can I poll the board, please?
I support the efficiency model.
Okay.
I support the efficiency model.
Deborah?
I don't support it. I support the institutional options on page 40 and having COG take a look at those various options.
Okay.
I support the efficiency model.
Doesn't even matter what I say.
Especially if you bring that, if you cross the thing.
I won't forget what you said.
Okay.
I promise you.
Okay.
I wrote it down.
I promise you.
So you have your direction. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
For your time.
For your patience.
Actually, I think you guys should give Deborah a bigger applause than that because really. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah? For you. I think you should probably.
I am.
Give the assessment.
Thank you,
I
Deborah.
think we can do.
All right. Okay. All right, so,
Unless you want to wait for it.
I don't know how countries it's going to be.
How much?
Let's try. Okay, so can we get to agenda number 8, item number 8, please, Assessor?
Mr. Chair, honorable members of the board, Leslie Davis, County Assessor. I'm here today asking you to adopt the resolution requiring that assessor staff who make change in ownership and exemption decisions be certified by the State Board of Equalization. This is a new law passed by the legislature last year. We did make 2 attempts at it. The governor vetoed it the first time and signed it the second time. Requires a resolution by the board on recommendation of the assessor. By way of very short history for you, before 1978, when Prop 13 passed, clerks in the assessor's office were just that. They were clerks. They were people who answered the phone and directed calls to someone. They pulled files. They put files back. But when Prop 13 passed, it required that there be a staff who could analyze change in ownership documents, who could analyze exemption documents, and who could make very complicated decisions based on what have come to be a lot of court cases, a lot of complicated laws that have been promulgated, both by the legislature and again by the courts. This request is to acknowledge essentially that detailed analysis that these folks do and to require them to be certified to make those decisions. I will tell you that I'm the initial author of this legislation and got the California assessors to move it forward to where the legislature finally approved it. I will tell you I am also on the committee of assessors working to develop the certification exam. So over the last couple of years, I've had an opportunity to talk to staff up and down the state about their concerns with certification, and to a person, their concern has been, what if I don't pass the test? I'm prepared to stand here today and tell you I don't think that's going to be a problem in our office. My staff is absolutely brilliant. They know what they're doing, and I don't see any problem with them passing the test. However, I have talked about it with the director of HR. I know she has a couple of questions. I will tell you that if they don't pass the exam within the 4 years that the grandfathered employees would have, that the assignment that they would have would not be to make a change in ownership decision or to make a decision about exemptions. I think it's important for all of you to understand exactly how much money is involved on the assessment roll with these decisions. Exemption staff in one exemption on our roll have taken $25 million off the assessment roll. My change in ownership staff with their decisions make the decision about whether or not something is a reappraisable event and push that work forward to the appraisers. I believe they should be certified at the same level that the appraisers are, and I'm recommending this to you. Do you have any questions? I'm trying to get under your noon deadline, Mr. Chair.
How many will have to be trained?
They're trained now. What we'll have to do is a little bit of pre-test review for them, but there would be 5 of my current staff members who would have to take the test. The balance of my staff is already certified as an appraiser for property tax purposes. Appraisers are excluded from this requirement because in larger counties throughout the state, they have the budget and the ability to assign appraisers to make these decisions. In smaller counties throughout the state, and in our case, our assessment technicians are the ones who make these decisions.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Question? Is this like a state exam then, Leslie?
Yes.
And
this will be a state exam promulgated by the State Board of Equalization. At this point, for appraiser exams, the state also proctors those tests, but we think that possibly as part of the initial implementation, the state will allow proctoring perhaps by the HR department so that it can be done on site and not have to travel to Sacramento.
That was my other question. So currently they would have to travel to Sacramento until we had something
to take the test.
To take the test.
However, most of the, I will tell you, most of the educational opportunities that we provide through the California Assessors Association, they're now provided by WebEx, so my staff logs in my office and they sit through a 3 to 7 hour training class on various issues relating to this. In fact, we have one tomorrow morning on exemptions, or went Thursday morning, and by the way, my office is closed Thursday morning because everybody is going to be involved in it.
And what's the cost? to the employee, or?
There is no cost to the employee, there's no cost to the county. The legislation, the way I wrote it, was that the state could not charge for this certification.
Very
So the
good.
state is doing this as part of their general fund mandate.
Who backed your bill?
Pardon?
Who supported your bill, sponsored your bill?
I don't remember who the second one was, so,
Who's the, I mean, what, did our local guys?
no. They voted for it.
Well, that's good.
But essentially what happens when we author something like this, the first thing we do is go to the California assessors and say, hey, can you put this on your legislative platform? They agreed to do that 2 years ago. Then we ask our consultants to find an author to move it forward through the legislature. So
Well, congratulations on
we were
doing it.
finally successful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And you may actually have the honor of being the first county to pass this. You might guess I was moving this so that we could also do that. Other questions?
One question. Ms. Davis, with this regulation coming into effect, any future hires in these positions will have to be certified to apply for that position, or is there a training period to get them certified?
There's a
after
training
hire?
period. It's the same as appraisers.
Okay.
Any new employees would have 1 year from the date we get them, they call it a temporary certification. So I would file paperwork with the State Board of Equalization saying, I have new staff and I'm giving them this assignment. They'd assign them temporary certification and they'd have 12 months to get through the training and get through the test.
Great.
I can tell you internally, we have more than adequate training to cover the kinds of questions that are being put on the exam.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Not for me.
Respectfully request that you adopt this motion so that we can move forward with what I think is a fairly important way to recognize the staff and what they do. Thank you.
Any public comments?
There's no effect on Prop 13 whatsoever, no.
Come up to the podium, Mike. I mean, visiting.
This does not impact any other state law.
Thank you.
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I want to remind the board that this is Kindness to Taxpayer Week, and now I just invented that, so hopefully...
Where's your sign?
No sign. We concur with the assessor, and we urge you to approve that item.
Okay.
Joe Kelly, I support the assessor's request. Please pass it. Thank you.
Well, somebody that takes a lot of money from me, she's getting a lot of likes, you know?
I think what's interesting is she has led provided leadership in the state to promote this, and I think that needs to be noted also. Kudos and recognition for having such an astute employee in the county. Thank you.
So, Judy?
Judy Hawkins, Human Resources Director.
So my question is how does it affect the current employees?
Well, like Leslie stated, the current employees do have 4 years to get their certification. We will need to meet and confer with the union and lay out the guidelines as well as rewrite the job descriptions. And then we will have 4 years, and if anyone is unable to pass the certification, they will not be able to do the ownership changes and the exemptions. And if the union has any questions or problems with that, like I said, we have 4 years to meet and confer with them. Nobody would lose their job with these changes. It may be just a change in some of the job duties.
After the 4 years?
After the 4 years. Okay. But we would do everything possible to make sure that everyone is properly certified. And this also provides a service to the county, making sure everybody is properly trained.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Any other questions?
No, that was my only concern.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments from the board?
Move to approve.
I would second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Supervisor Kearney and a second by Supervisor Ponte. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so we're going to break for, until 1 o'clock.
So we're going to start with the restaurant. Nobody there, we were thinking about a lunch break.